on our website, free subscription, no catch, no hooks, no obligation. We put all of our recordings now on our website. It's a free subscription. We want people to get this information and have access to it. And we'll have that up. It takes us a day or two just to clip it, make sure that we've captured what we need to capture. And then also provide whatever supplementary materials we want to provide, which I typically try and give as many resources as I can. All right, so let me jump in. I'm going to share my screen. Welcome, everyone. It's good to have you with us. Happy Tuesday. All right. Okay. Now that has changed my view, so let's make sure that I can see everyone still. All right. Oh, that's not going to work. I've tried that before. We're going to do it this way. I know this is an idea, but we're going to do it this way. Can you still see my screen? Can everyone still see my screen?
Yes.
Thanks,
I
Jeff.
can.
All right, perfect. Great. All right, so today we are going to focus on planning your fundraising campaigns. And really, this actually came in by request on the last session or the session before, I can't remember. And it was one that I actually couldn't attend. There haven't been many of those, but I had a family medical situation, and I couldn't, in over a year, it's been 2 that I've missed, and that was one of them. But I always watch them afterwards. And one of the comments was, how on earth do I figure out what campaigns I should be planning for the year, and where do they fit, and what's a good time, and which ones should I be repeating, and which ones should I not, and which ones make sense? So I figured we could tackle this today as our topic. Even though we're in May, it doesn't hurt. And planning is always, it's happening all the time. So there's no reason why not. I want to just say first that I'm Kirsten Stevens with the Canico Agency. These webinars are part of our corporate social responsibility. And we feel that we have a commitment to dedicating volunteer time and effort to empowering the nonprofit sector, giving them the tools they need. We feel my team and I, my colleagues, my partners, the advisors that I work with, we all feel that nonprofits are at an extreme disadvantage. And we want to make sure that we try and level up as much as we can and provide tools that everyone should have access to. So that's why we're offering the recordings on demand on our website for free. So every session, I think we're up to, we started these in February. We restarted in February of 23 because we did them for a couple of years when the pandemic hit. So since February, all of those recordings, the ones we were able to provide, if they aren't up, it's because we just weren't able to record it for whatever reason. But they are up on our website. If you go to canico.com/courses, it's a free subscription, no strings attached. We'll send you some emails to remind you about the webinars. We might send you an occasional other email, but basically it's a free subscription, and all of the webinars are on there. And I don't think we have every single resource on there yet. We're still putting it together, but whenever I mention a download or a PDF or a website for something, I sit down right after the webinar and I go ahead and get that ready, because things come to me as we're talking and I get ideas. And when people ask questions, I come up with other resources to provide. So those will be available to you too. And then the only thing I ask in return is if you would do me the favor of potentially providing a testimonial or Google review if you feel like it. But more importantly, give us some feedback on topics that you feel would be helpful to hear about or to learn about. Because it's not just me, there's a team that's involved. We're all happy to participate. I have advisors and partners and colleagues I can lean on for their expertise in areas that I may not be as comfortable with. So please feel free to give us your suggestions and recommendations, just like this one was. So thank you, Lulis from Imagina Children's Foundation, even though she can't be here today, but she'll get to watch them. All right, so we are going to jump right into the fundraising campaigns. We do these seminars every Tuesday, second Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. Eastern. Right now, we only do one a month, but we're going to ramp that up. I know we've said that for a while, but we've been busy behind the scenes getting all those webinars up on the website. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about why this is so important. Why is this so critical? And there are a couple of things. First of all, if we approach this knowing in our heads everything that needs to get done, but we don't have a strategy to approach it, we will be disorganized throughout the entire year. The second thing is your board members are probably going to ask you, hey, where do we stand in our planning for the year? What's coming up? What do we need to look ahead at? When do we need to start planning for certain things? It allows you to organize internally. It allows you to allocate the resources. It allows you to make really tough decisions about some things that maybe shouldn't be happening. Maybe there are events that really aren't generating that much revenue and aren't getting that much of an audience, and you probably shouldn't be having these events, right? So there are two ways to look at this. I mean, not only does it streamline the work, but it also helps you be a little selective about what you're doing and where you want to put your energy. So you're organized, you can anticipate opportunities, you've got your team on track, you know exactly what everybody's meant to be working on at certain times of the year. And it really does help to create this steady flow of donor interactions, funding coming in, a feeling like you're on top of things. You've got plenty of communications going out to your donors. You have less donors falling through the cracks, so there's less of a risk of lapsed donors, which that's a big problem that we all have, donor retention. So really looking very critically at what does the year consist of? What are all of the things that need to be planned for? So when we think about this in terms of the AI piece, because I think the people who, those of you who've been coming for the last few months have seen a significant uptick in our usage of AI as we develop these campaigns and as we do our work. And the reason is AI allows us to do our work faster, more efficiently, put our energy in places where it needs to be. There are things that AI is never going to replace. You are never going to be able to have that heart-to-heart with a major donor using AI. It's going to require a face-to-face conversation. You may get some tools and some tips from AI on how to handle that conversation, but there are things that can't be replaced. A handwritten note, a board member calling a donor to thank them for their gift. Those are not going to be substituted with AI, but there's so many things that can be. And what I'd like to do is eliminate the fear and the concern about using AI. Obviously, we want to use it ethically and responsibly, but let's leverage every tool that we have. That's why we do these webinars. We want to give you every tool you have. I need tools, you need tools, we all need tools. So we're going to really look at the way that we can use AI to enhance the planning, enhance the execution. I'm going to do a lot of live demos on what I do behind the scenes to get myself up to speed with AI and find out what's going on, find out what I'm missing, find out what other benefits there could be to what I'm working on, the task that I'm working on. Everything from creating a gift table to creating your annual development plan. So if we look at the potential downside, right, of not using the planning effectively, of not really focusing on what planning is, you're missing opportunities. You've got poor timing. Everyone's sort of overlapping in their responsibilities. It's this sense of not having a good handle on things. And the reality is, it is going to take work. No matter how much we use AI and no matter how much we plan, it's going to take work. We're going to have to step up. And if we want the best, we have to give our best. So there is an element of that that's going to happen in anything that you do that has to do with development. It has to do with board governance, thing that has to do with leadership roles. But let's at least put the infrastructure in place so that we know where we're heading and what we're doing. And at any moment, if we lift our head up and look at that plan, we have a good picture of what's ahead of us, what's behind us. So we have the risk of losing donors. We have the risk of being inefficient, inaccuracy for budgeting, forecasting, even just the fact that we go silent for 6 months, maybe, right? What does that mean in terms of what our audience and what the public is thinking, what our donors and prospects are thinking? So there are tremendous benefits, and we want to make sure that we've incorporated everything. I think, you know, when I think about a plan, and you can call it an annual development plan, you can call it a campaign plan. At the end of the day, it's a place to put everything. Let's just at least start with that. Let's put everything in one place, and then we can sort it out. We can figure out what's coming next, but let's get organized and put it in one place. For me, that would be an annual development plan. We'll look at a couple of samples, and I've got some, I have some great materials for you that are free that you can find online that'll help guide you a little bit in that process. And I also have a resource. See, this is why resource to guide you through the development of your annual development plan, as well as a sample. So I'll make sure that that resource is available to you afterwards. So what we want to include, we're going to include the, oops, sorry, this is running quickly. So we're going to include everything from fundraising campaigns, special events, donor communications, reporting schedules, grants, proposals, LOIs, even the research. The research should be on there because you should be updating your grant research every few months. Not all of us have the luxury of sitting down for 5 hours and knocking out all of our year's worth of grant research in one shot. So if you need to tackle it every few months, make sure that it's documented, it's on a calendar somewhere. But then even things like, when are we looking at our donors in our donor database to assess their propensity to give? And their, I mean, basically it's a wealth search, right? It's a, I know that's crass, but when are we doing that? Is that getting scheduled? Or is that just an impulse effort, which isn't going to yield tremendous results, right? Because we pop in and pop out, and then it's on to the next thing. So the other thing is, if we have a good handle on this, I think it's easier for other people to execute on. So if we've got it mapped out, people can see what the roadmap is, where we're heading. It's helpful for execution as well. You can get your team involved on that. So the reason for the use of AI is to layer on to this plan things like automation of scheduling, tracking of your donor interactions, even tracking the insights and gaining some potential perspective on how you're doing this year versus last year. And some of these are built in. Bloomerang is a database that I use a lot. And I will say that Bloomerang has a lot of this integrated already. And it's wonderful when you open up the dashboard and you can see these charts, and they compare this year with last year. And I mean, it's really fantastic. But at the end of the day, if I use a static Bloomerang product and I'm running reports, I'm still running them the way they would have been run 5 or 10 years ago, right? It's collating information, data, numbers, dates, names. Well, there are other ways that we can utilize that information, and we're going to dig into that as well. So if we think about the breakdown of activities month by month, we want to be thinking about what's going to happen between January and December, or if you wanted to start now, between June and May, right? So June of 24 to May of 25. What are all of the things that are happening in your organization that have to do with development, or even are loosely attached to development? And I say that because to me, board activities are really, really, really important. You must have a strong and impactful board for your success. And so making sure that those board activities stay on track sometimes require that we be the ones to help direct that effort. So I like to include that also in the annual development plan. But if we go month by month, we also have an opportunity to look at quarter. So what needs to happen each quarter? A lot of those board activities can go into the quarterly bucket. And then we have a nice overview of the year. But let me go back for 1 second. I think what Lulis was also talking about when she said, let's do a session on our campaigns for the year. She's also saying, well, how do I know the best time to have my gala? How do I know the best time to hold an event, to go after my major donors? How do I know when I should be focusing on certain things? What do I know about what happens out in the community or out in even the general holiday schedule, right? So there are a couple of different ways we can approach this, because if you want to think about, I'll take South Florida as an example. July and August are terrible times to have any type of fundraisers. And I think that's probably typical across the US. But are there other things that we can be doing in July and August that really are going to help us ramp up for, let's say, a season of giving, right? That might start in the fall. Are there holidays that might interfere with a particular effort that you're working on? It's a training, it's a board gathering, it's a strategic planning. Okay, is there something else happening that weekend? Is it a particular holiday? Is there something that you should be aware of? So we do have to layer on some of these other factors that are going to help influence what the best time is to do things. But generally speaking, we're going to look at this on a 12-month basis, and we're just going to try and make some clear, set some intentions for what each of those quarters could look like. So let's start with, I don't think it's going to work now because I'm just clicking on something else. Let's see. Let's start with what it looks like for January. So one of the things that I really like is if we were to look at the previous year's performance, what we often do is run a report, take a look at it, and make some on-the-spot decisions. What I would encourage you to do is, yes, generate a report of whatever type you can, run it through ChatGPT and get some feedback on it. And that's what I've started doing with everything. Every time I produce a spreadsheet, a report, I upload it into ChatGPT and I ask it to give me an assessment, give me a summary. That's a great way now to analyze patterns of giving, your top giving months, the weeks, even can break it down to the weeks, the amounts. You could even create your gift table for the year based on the prior year's spreadsheet and giving patterns. And by the way, the last time I did this, I was going to save this for the end, how I go in. I'm not sure what's going to be the best order, the best sequence to do this, because I don't want to jump around too much, but I will cover everything. But the way I did this yesterday, just sort of playing around, I was watching the new release of ChatGPT 4.0 and testing it out and seeing, like, when is it going to be active for us? What are the features that are changing and so on? And I downloaded a CSV spreadsheet from Bloomerang, top donors for 2023. I uploaded I just clicked on the attach button, uploaded it to ChatGPT, and asked for a summary of the performance from the prior year. And it was astounding what it came back with. So really, every part of this could be somehow actually enhanced with AI. So maybe not to a huge degree. Maybe all you feel like doing is coming up with your the script for the next call that you're going to have with your major donor. Fine. But instead of sitting there racking your brain, in fact, I had someone ask me yesterday, oh, can you help me with a script for these major donors? I'm really nervous about this. And I said, sure. So I ran it through ChatGPT, came up with a script, personalized it, customized it to exactly what their mission and purpose is and what they do. They have a weekly show, so it fit in well with this weekly show. I tailored it and I sent her the script. So, you know, to give us, again, it's just having that tool, and even looking at it and saying, well, these are the 4 things I'm going to focus on for this particular event or planning session with the board or professional development with the board. Asking ChatGPT what you've missed. What have I missed? My biggest concern is I don't have a very engaged board. What have I missed? So if we look at all of these things we're going to go through, we want to be thinking always about how else could we enhance it? How could we improve it? How could we lessen the work for ourselves? There's nothing wrong with that. The work that we do is critical. The work that you do is critical. So let's leverage everything we have and be as effective as we can be. All right, so then we're looking at the previous year and we're setting some goals. We could even say, ChatGPT, these were my results from last year. I'm looking for some aspirational goals. I'd like to increase giving overall throughout the year by 25%. What I need to do. You'll get some good answers. So goal setting could be as simple as that. You could even say, ChatGPT, we've seen a 10% increase every year in the last 5 years, but next year we need to increase it to 40 because we're launching 3 new programs. How do you suggest I do that? You'd be surprised. And if you pay for the $20 a month service and you've created some GPTs, all of that's going to get remembered. Now there's a memory function to ChatGPT, so it's just going to continue the conversation. You could pop right into the conversation you were having before. You could enhance it. You can say, you know what, could we take a different look at it? Could you present me with some other options? All right. So the other thing that I want to mention when you're looking at the previous year's results is talk to your donors. Do some focus group work. Ask them what they like, what they don't like, what's going well. Did you enjoy the gala last year? Would you come to another one? Focus groups are the best way to do it because you can get a few people at a time. You could do a survey potentially if you have a nice group of engaged donors that you know are going to be interested in submitting a response to you. But I like phone calls. I like jumping on a Zoom with 5 or 10 people and asking for some feedback. So we want to be careful that we're not bringing our own preconceived ideas and suggestions to this planning process. Just because we think it's a great event doesn't mean that our audience thinks it's a great event. It's like selling a product or a service. I don't want to sell something that I think is magnificent. I want to sell something that everybody else wants. So let's take that same approach when we're thinking about our events, campaigns, appeals, fundraisers. All right. We also have the ability to use some predictive analytics. There are plenty of services out there that provide it. I don't know a whole lot about it. I know that Salesforce has a very strong predictive analytics built-in function that's very helpful. There are a number of them that offer that. But I think for now, if we want to keep this within what we feel is realistic, given maybe our skill sets, if we're fairly new at this, then using ChatGPT is a great way to do it. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier was identifying donors with the means to give, or the propensity to give significantly. Running your CSV report of your donors through ChatGPT and asking it to identify zip codes that are known for being in communities of wealth, I'll just put it out there, is a great way to do that. Because we don't always know. And as long as we have an address, a full address with a zip code for a donor, you could actually do your own wealth engine search internally. And you could export this data. You can use it to, potentially leverage your communications with your donors. You could ask for increased gifts. We all know that donors typically tend to increase in their giving over time. Well, this would be a way that you could come right out to those donors, segment them, target them separately, ask them for an increase in their gift. All right, February is a great time to be looking at donor appreciation events, whether it's scheduling them, whether it's the communications. But typically in February, we're kind of coming down from, we've all sort of settled back into the routine a little bit, but we had a big push. October, November, December, huge push. We are just nonstop, right? If you started your campaigns in October, you integrated Giving Tuesday, you ended up in December. February is a great time to come back. And I think it displays some thoughtfulness and intention if your donor appreciation isn't just an automated email. It's just not an automated letter that was generated the first of the year, but it really shows that there's some thought behind this. And of course, teeing things up for the next year. It's a great time to talk about the things that are coming up program-wise. And really, if you have a CRM that will help you segment your donors and personalize communications, then it'll make the task a little bit easier. March is a great time to plan your spring campaigns, launch your spring, well, not plan them, hopefully you've planned them in February, but really launch spring campaigns. And I say launch because there is so much behind the scenes that needs to happen leading up to that. You may have had to jump into that in January if you have something coming up in March or April. But March is also a good time to be looking at targeted outreach strategies. And it's given everyone a nice breather since the fall campaign. You've got January, February, things are at a little bit of a lull. You've expressed appreciation, you've communicated with donors. Now you can really look at, okay, targeted outreach strategies. What are they going to look like? Who are the donors? Who's connected to those donors? Hopefully you've kept some really good notes in your donor database and you can go back and see who was the solicitor or who was the person that that donor connected with. It may not even be as formal as a solicitor. It may be a volunteer that they spoke, that they connected with. Well, would that volunteer be a good person maybe to initiate that contact with the donor? Who knows? But that targeted outreach needs to be happening. And particularly if you have a development committee. And I cannot stress enough the importance of having a development committee. I know it's hard. It's hard to have a board that's functioning and engaged and excited and ready to make impact. And I would say by default, for the most part, most nonprofit leaders that I speak to are not entirely satisfied with the performance of their boards. So it is sometimes a stretch to ask for a development committee to be formed. But the development committee does not have to consist only of board members. You can bring in some other people. You may have some great volunteers that would like to join the development committee. And the other thing with development committees is that people can come and go. There may be a little season for someone to join the development committee. Maybe they want to be particularly involved in one part of your planning for the year, but they don't really want to be involved in everything throughout the year and all of the fundraising. So I think if we look at getting the best bang for our buck in terms of a development committee, it's really to sort of formulate it around what your committee members are willing to do and able to do. But a development committee can be really powerful. And I would encourage you to think about how you can put one together that's going to help support your work, particularly if you're from a fairly small organization and you don't have a very large team and you don't have a huge development team. Okay, so board activities. Board activities are critical, and March is a great time to get started on that work. And I would say these are my top things for board activities. A compliance check. So making sure that everything is up to date in terms of legal, regulatory, and financial reporting requirements, and that the board is aware, that the board sees the 990. They set eyes on the 990. They know what it is. They know what it looks like. They know when it's going out. They know it was filed on time or that you filed an extension. They understand it enough, right? They don't have to be experts, but they understand it enough. They know where to find all of your compliance documents. There's nothing worse than a board member who's asked a question by someone and they say, oh, I don't know, I guess we have bylaws. Where would those be? So making sure that you're equipping the board with everything that they need so that they can do their job well. There needs to be a conversation about succession planning. One of the other committees that I strongly advocate for is a governance committee. The governance committee of the board could be two or three board members. This would consist of board members, and their job is to be working on ongoing succession planning, ongoing recruiting for the board. It doesn't just happen 1 month or 2 months before someone's going to roll off the board, or 2 people are coming off the board, or the president's resigning and we don't know who's going to replace them. This should be a proactive effort, but the governance committee also plans professional development for the board. So they're making sure that maybe once every 6 months, we bring in a board member from another organization, an expert on a topic that relates to our programs and our mission, or an executive director from another organization who can do a little board training. But that would be their responsibility as well. So think about having this role of a board governance committee that is going to be tasked with the succession planning and recruiting, and then the professional development, and then of course getting that scheduled on the plan, right? So that needs to be on there. So board training, I mentioned, committee oversight. Are we happy with our committees? Do we need more? Do we need less? Sometimes there are too many committees. Sometimes there aren't enough. Sometimes there aren't enough people for a committee. Great, then we need to go find some more board members. If you have a strategic plan, and I hope everyone here does, and has one that's in progress at some stage, that strategic plan, which ideally will have been operationalized into action steps, very clear action steps for that 3-year period, 2-year period, 5-year period, however long the strategic plan is for. Hopefully you have a snapshot of what those action steps are meant to be for this year. And you can refresh everyone's memory. Do you remember in strategic planning, we talked about this. We talked about in the first quarter of 2024, we were going to launch the development committee. So where do we stand on that? What are the thoughts? What can we do about that? But bringing that back to the forefront, I recommend doing it quarterly. I really do. And honestly, even if you don't have a strategic plan, if you have your development plan and you can supplement it a little bit with some operational planning, just something that's, again, reminding everyone of the big picture. And then governance policies are critical as well. Making sure that we know that we have, we talked last year about how we received some stocks and we really need an investment policy. Oh goodness, okay, well, we better get on that. That's something that we need to work on and, delegate and assign. So some of those governance issues as well. I would say the other piece to that is the board will need to be reminded that even though they just went through this tremendous effort with major donors in the fall of prior year, it starts all over again, right? We're renewing our donors. So the board will need to be reminded about that. All right, any questions so far? Feel free to unmute and just speak up if you have a question. I'm always very, very happy to answer them as we go along. I hate it when we move on to a totally different topic and then we've sort of lost that gist. So if anyone has a question, please feel free to speak up. Okay, otherwise I will continue. Okay, so let's talk about April, May, and June. So this is really when we're launching spring campaigns. We're engaging our donors. We're looking at maybe multi-channel campaign management. So what does that look like? Okay, well, we want to have a written campaign. Let's say we've got our spring fundraiser at the end of April or beginning of May. And what does that look like? Well, it's going to take a bunch of emails. It's going to take our social media posts. It's going to take some personalized videos from the executive director. Those are going to go directly into people's inboxes. Oh, and we're also going to do a mailer. Okay, great. So that all needs to be factored in. And here's another tip on the use of ChatGPT for this. And I know I go back to ChatGPT. It's the AI platform I know the most. I use it every single day. I'm sure there are others that are great, but I'll default to that. But the other thing you could do is you could really put into, there's so much information you could put into ChatGPT. You could, if you have an annual report or if you have a case for support and it lists your top 5 programs and you say, okay, I'm going to upload this case for support. Chat, I'd like you to analyze it for me. And our spring campaign is focused on these 2 top programs that have to do with after school activities for kids. And we are launching an email campaign, a letter writing campaign, or a snail mail campaign, social media, and we're also going to be sending out personalized videos to our audience. Create a plan for me for the next 60 days on how to execute that. And it will give you the plan. And then you can go back and say, okay, that sounds great. Create the first letter for me. Great. Create the first 3 emails for me. Make sure that they're all a little bit different and that each one portrays an increasing sense of urgency because we have a goal and this all has to be wrapped up by May 15th. So there's, again, all these little tricks that you can use that will help you so much because, I know that if I sit down to do something and I start with a blank piece of paper, it'll take me much longer than if somebody gives me something and they go, I just threw some ideas down. I go, oh yeah, here, let me revise it. Let me organize it. Let me start that. Right? Completely different than starting with a blank slate. So even if it's not absolutely what you are going to be implementing, it certainly gives you ideas. And you could say, okay, well, this is what we're planning to do for our spring event. It's a virtual open house so that our prospects and donors can see what we do in our after school activities. And we were thinking of offering this and this. What else could we do? How could we enhance this? How do we handle the fact that this is focused only on 2 programs and we have 3 other programs that we didn't raise money for this spring fundraiser? So use also the big picture of where you're trying to go as you gather information and you become a little savvier in terms of how you're going to handle this and coordinate it all. Let me just see here. I just want to see. Oh, I'm not very loud. That's not good. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me well? I'll try and speak more loudly. Let me also change. Let me see if my mic is. Let's see.
I hear you fine.
You do. Okay, thank goodness. Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Danielle. Okay. Let's see. So now the chat's showing, right? So I'm trying to get that out. All right. Okay. So we have our spring campaigns. We're going to try and do multi-channel management, performance tracking, which that's the other thing. If you can feed everything that you can feed into ChatGPT, it will analyze it for you. Can you imagine the reports that you can produce for your board when you're using ChatGPT and Canva? So put those 2 together. Wow, you know, you've analyzed and really you could analyze the last 5 years of what you've been doing and produce a report. You could do that at any time, not even now when you're doing the campaign planning, but it's an incredible tool. And then the stewardship and solicitation strategy as well for ChatGPT, I think is crucial. So if you have a segment of donors that are particularly interested in one thing or another thing, ask for some letters, ask for a solicitation strategy. Again, it's not that we don't know how to do this. We all know how to do this, but who has the time? Who has the time to be so intentional and deliberate and thoughtful? But we can do it now with tools. You can upload letters and emails that you've written so that ChatGPT produces it in your own voice. My preference is to get the content and then I always repurpose it so that it fits me, it fits what I'm talking about, it fits my approach and my relationship with the donors. All right, so May is a good time to start working on your mid-year updates to your donors. So what's been happening for the last 5 months? What have we accomplished? What's ahead of us? June is a great time to work on stewardship activities. You can start making your plans for your major gift solicitation. You can look at what's going to be happening in the fall, who's going to be working on what parts of the campaigns. And in terms of board, again, going back to the board activities, make sure that the board is having their monthly board meetings and that hopefully on a quarterly basis, they're looking at integrating and engaging new board members if some have come on board. And by the way, a really great thing to do, and I've seen this more and more lately, and it works incredibly well, is for the board to assign or to self-identify a mentor or a buddy for a new board member. There's nothing like having someone take you by the hand and talk you through where things stand, where things are, what the financials look like, giving you a sort of a perspective on what it's going to be like to serve on this particular board. So think about that as a potential option. Again, work on professional development, performance review. It's a great time. It's a great time in June to be looking at a performance review for the board. And I have another tool for you. I have a board report card, which is a simpler one. And I have a board assessment, which is a little more in depth. And I am going to make those resources available as well. The board should always be self-assessing, always be looking at its performance and effectiveness. And honestly, that involves a review of from the CEO's perspective. So there should also be, the CEO should be engaged to also talk about how they feel the board is performing and what are the areas that they're struggling with and need more help with. Committee reports, that's a good time for committee reports to be produced. And that includes development committee. Let's see. applying for grants. So anything that has happened up until that point, we know that typically boards of foundations meet quarterly. Sometimes these deadlines, of course, are rolling or there are particular deadlines, but June and then going into July and August is a really, really good time to look at some fresh grant research. It's a good time to look at your past LOIs and proposals. Maybe you upload a proposal to ChatGPT and ask for a fresh perspective, or you say, these are the new metrics that we have that came in from the last 2 months. Could you update my proposal, or could you update the language in this particular section of our case for support? So it's a good time to do a little bit of in-house work. Okay, let's go on to what happens in the summer. So summer, again, we're looking at mid-year performance. We're getting ready for fall. I think I skipped it. I think I already talked about a lot of these. Let me see about Q3, board performance. Oh no, this is July, September. Okay. So we're preparing for the fall campaigns, refining our strategies, creating campaign materials. It takes much longer than we think it does. If we're sending out a sequence of emails, a sequence of solicitations, snail mail letters, all of that takes time to prepare. And so getting a head start on that. And if you have a VA, if you have someone on your team, a volunteer who can go into Canva, go into chat, create some letters, go into Canva, make them look nice, or even, start working on the report for the end of the year, work on reports for grants that may be due. All of that it's a good time to be working on in July and August. I do not recommend events in June, July, or August, or even September for that matter. September is back to school, and for most people, it's a little bit crazy. So those are typically months that one would want to stay away from a little bit in terms of events. Now, if you've been doing something year after year and it's working and it's generating revenue, and more than anything, it's generating goodwill with your donors, goodness, continue, please. But for the most part, it is not the best time. It may be the best time for someone who suggests having an event. Like, you may have an eager board member who says, you know what, we're going to do a golf tournament in July. It's the best time to do it. We can get in, we can get our whole group into the golf course. One thing is, if they offer to do it and you don't have to do much work on your end, I would say balance that out and figure out if it's a good idea. But if it's a brand new event and it's going to be on you, it is not a good time to do it. Unless you live in a place where there are typically events happening in that time period. Maybe there are fishing tournaments that happen. Maybe there's something that's very distinctive to your region. If not, galas, golf tournaments, big events, it's award ceremonies, even, not a good idea. Okay. So we will also be looking at, in the fall, we'd be looking at identifying the high potential donors. And I would encourage you to get a head start on this, because match opportunities exist. They exist for everyone. It could be a match of $5,000. It could be a match of $50,000. But everyone has the opportunity to leverage a match opportunity. And to me, or a matching gift, to me, what I've seen work the best is a donor who's generous, that has given in the past, that has an affinity for the organization, who is probably going to make a gift in the next 3 to 4 months, having a conversation with them and asking them if they would be comfortable with you leveraging their gift for a match. I've done it many times. It's worked beautifully. Now, the times that I've done it, each of the times that I've done it, the donor has asked to remain anonymous. Fair enough. Doesn't matter. It's a match. It gets people excited. It gives you something to work towards. It sets a nice goal. So look at match opportunities in September or even earlier by really carefully analyzing your database, looking at who's not given for the year, who's known to be a generous donor. Generous, again, everything's relative, right? A major gift. I know the standard, I heard the other day, the standard is 5,000 as a major gift. Well, for some organizations, a major gift is 1,000. For some, it's 25,000. So again, it's all relative, but identifying those high potential donors, checking to see if they've given this year, you running your reports, last year, but not this year, some year, but not this year. And then looking at match opportunities on a one-on-one basis, talking to people. Donors, the experience that I've had with matching gifts is that donors weren't really aware that it was something that they could do. I think they sort of felt like, oh, well, that's just something that the nonprofit puts together. And then they advertise it and they say, oh, we have a matching gift opportunity. But when presented with the idea, I mean, I've never had it rejected. So I think it's worth exploring. On the board side, we want to be sure that the board is reviewing financial and operational compliance, that they are checking in with their new board members. They're making sure that they're comfortable. They're looking at potential committees that these new board members could join. Maybe they're adjusting any strategic planning that may be in progress, adjusting goals for the year, maybe looking at some potential recruitment. Maybe the governance committee has started working on potential recruitment. And really starting to think about what's the end of the year going to look like? Where's our shortfall in funding? How are the programs coming along? Are we going to end strong with end the year strong? Is there anything that we should be working on that maybe we've neglected for whatever reason? I think if we're going to look at summer as a quieter month in terms of events, then it's a good month to be ramping up our online efforts and looking at community-based efforts. So how can we partner with other organizations? What are some of the things that are happening? What can we explore that would give us all some visibility? Maybe it's a market that's happening. Maybe there's a particular festival that's happening. So really exploring some of those opportunities as well, because the visibility is critical. But I think, again, when we're looking at the board, talking to the board about what it's going to look like to launch the end of year campaign. One of my favorite things to do is to print out the annual appeal letters that are going to go to the donors that receive a hard copy. And I'm sure all of you have a number of donors that you send a hard copy appeal to, if not 3 of them. Typically we send them in 3s, right? But give your board a heads up that you're going to ask them to personally sign 20 of those letters at the next board meeting. They can sit there during the board meeting and sign their name. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think there is something to be said about the personalization. If they have given names to the organization for the newsletter, for just keeping people informed about the programming, about what's happening, can you imagine getting a letter that says, hey, this is the organization I told you about? So you already have your letter, your appeal letter, right? At the bottom, the board member says, this is the organization I was talking about. I'm so excited. Please consider a gift this year. And they sign it. So if each board member is in charge of 10 or 20 of those letters, and they're personalized in some way, even if they don't know the person, you have no idea what joy it gives me to serve on this board. I'm really hoping you'll consider a gift this year. Great. So warn them that those are coming, because they typically, the first batch should go out in October. So again, if we're thinking of like the big building blocks to our campaign planning, we have a heavy push from February to May. We have a heavy push from end of September through to December. Okay, so as we get into the fall, and again, I am going to do I'm going to do demos, don't worry. So we get into the fall, we want to start planning the end of year campaign down to the minute details. So really looking at, okay, if we want to focus on Giving Tuesday, and I'm not saying everyone should, a lot of people should not. A lot of people do, and that's fine. But how does that fit within what we're already doing? So are we going to confuse people? Oh my goodness, I just got this letter and now they've got this big fundraiser on Giving Tuesday. I don't understand. But if you can sort of try and seamlessly incorporate it so that it's all part of the October, November, December efforts, it'll be more effective. The other thing I would suggest for Giving Tuesday is, rather than simply sending out emails for a 24-hour period, posting on social media, give it an anchor. Maybe your executive director will host a a live Zoom with some of the participants in your program and a couple of board members. Or maybe there are some donors that are willing to get on a Zoom and just have a live session. You can record it, you can stream it, you can play it again later. But it's nice if you can give it an anchor. If you have a program where children are getting after school art classes, maybe this would be a good opportunity to do a little online auction or raffle, or just show some of the artwork and introduce some of the students if you're allowed to. I think there are ways that you can do this that Giving Tuesday becomes a little more special. It's really been diluted, and I know myself, I get multiple emails. I'm sure you guys do too, solicitations. You just think, oh my goodness, I can't give to everyone. But certainly if we can, it's like when we talk about raising money for a campaign, but I still need money for my annual fund. Yeah, so they can give to Giving Tuesday, but by the way, we still need our annual fund supported. So even if they've given a gift for the year already, and maybe that was their one gift, it's worth investing the time and the energy into doing something that's within reason, but appropriate for Giving Tuesday, but more than just the online solicitations. I think that's what it comes down to. I've seen it done well. There was an organization that tried it for the first time last year, and I think they raised $27,000. That's not shabby. That is not shabby. And it was a 2-hour sort of mini comedy storytelling session with the founder, the executive director, a couple of donors from the community, some of the program recipients, and it went over really well. Really well. In fact, it gets replayed quite a bit and still generates donations. Okay, so when we look at what the end of year campaign is going to look like, it's the classic format is three solicitations, one in October, one in November, one in December. Again, if you're looking at Giving Tuesday and incorporating that, maybe it's October and December, and Giving Tuesday is your November sort of event and solicitation. But really looking, and of course you want to be sure that you're running your report so that if someone has just given, they don't get another appeal, because the last thing we want to do is appear incredibly disorganized and ungrateful. So we want them to feel like their gift was so special. We know them personally. We know that they gave personally, and we would never dream of soliciting them again 3 weeks later when the next batch of letters goes out. So make sure you run your last year, but not this year, reports continuously as you are preparing these letters to go out. They do slip through the cracks, and it has happened. And you just apologize and say, yep, we had already set this all up, and I'm so sorry. Yes, we got your gift. It was incredibly generous of you, and we're so grateful. And you can just disregard the other one unless you'd like to. You don't need to do that. You don't need to say that. That's just a suggestion, which has worked for me as well, by the way. And then it's not worked. Okay, so let's talk about what the board is going to be doing at the end of the year. So they're going to be evaluating their effectiveness again. It's time every 6 months they should be assessing their effectiveness, because we want to make sure we catch sort of beginning of the year, end of the year, or middle of the year, end of the year. And you could also leave this to January if you'd like, but a board assessment or board report card. Again, I'm going to make sure that you have access to that resource, making sure that any board training, professional development has taken place, making sure that the committees have provided some sort of report, an update on the status of what they worked on throughout the year. Maybe time for your annual general meeting. Maybe that happens in January, maybe it happens in December. And then it is a good time as well to look at donor appreciation. I know we talked about February, but there will be many donors who have given already in December and also in November. And I know that a lot of people like to tie it to Thanksgiving. So there's just never a wrong time to be thanking donors. And it does require that intentional effort. It does require, if it falls on you, it may require that you decide that every Monday and Friday for the first half hour when you sit down at work, you're going to write your thank you notes, or you're going to make your phone calls, or you're going to delegate to your board members, 5 calls to donors that need to be made during the week to thank them for their for their contributions. Again, those things could all be incorporated into your plan. Okay, so let's talk a little bit now about some of the practical applications. And I'm going to move into sharing my screen. Oh, yes. Thank you, Hispanic Entrepreneurship Initiative, that some chambers have events like Boca Festival Days. Exactly. So those are the types of community events that we want to be sure that we're including in our planning as well. And finding ways to collaborate with other nonprofits. What are you guys doing this year? Well, we didn't want to do the same thing. So great. So let's get some feedback. Let's find out what other people are working on. Now, let me go into, so this is going to be a complete screen change here. So I just have to move a couple little things around. I do have two screens going. All right, so the first thing I want to show you is Neon has, all of these CRMs have started coming out with great resources, videos, downloads, ebooks. I encourage you to explore them. I spend a lot of time doing this because I'm always looking for the latest, greatest tool. Can you all see my screen? Yes, you can. Okay. So the 2024 nonprofit calendar, this is by Neon. And I think I had to sign up for it. And it talks you through what you can look at for the year in terms of themes. And then it gives you what's already happening on those days so that you can work your way around what are some of the things that are already happening that you can maybe tie into your fundraising or that perhaps you want to avoid. Earth Day is a great one, for example, April 22nd. But it's a good place to find pretty much everything that you need to know in terms of what's happening globally on a calendar. And then I seem to remember that they had a template. Sorry, I'm whipping through this really quickly. Let me see. I thought they had a calendar. Okay, so they don't have a calendar. They only have this calendar, but I'm going to show you another calendar. So this one is from CauseVox. Let me make sure, yes, I've got the right one. This is a really good one. This is hardcore because this is spreadsheets. And so they have provided you with the calendar worksheet and the template, a little bit of guidance, an example of what this could look like. So at the very basic level, it could be a spreadsheet. Your annual development plan could be a spreadsheet. In fact, even if you have a written plan that you felt compelled to do because maybe you just had to just do this big brain dump and get everything out and then sort of sort it and figure out what you're going to do with it. It is so helpful to then put it into a calendar like this, where you have the months, you have the quarters, you've laid out, oh, look, this is our donor appreciation letters. They go out in October. What's it going to cost us? How many hours are required? What are we thinking we're going to generate? Net income. Okay, so this was donor appreciation. Let's look at one that generates some revenue here. Okay, so September. We've got the summer fall crowdfunding campaign, hours needed, estimated income, estimated costs, and then is it aligned with our bigger goals and our action steps? So this is a great tool, and I already had this saved, but I'll make sure that this is available as well. I like this. I think they put some thought into it. And there's the blank version that you can fill in. How cool is that? I think that's great. All right, let's jump into ChatGPT. The first thing I want to show you is one that I cannot show you in chat because it analyzed a spreadsheet from Bloomerang. And I can't show you the whole thing because it lists the donors. And I went back and asked chat 4 times to make it anonymous and de-identify my donors. And it just kept saying, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I'm trying, and it just couldn't. So this is what the results were. So I took a spreadsheet from Bloomerang that I downloaded, a CSV, and I put it into ChatGPT, and I'll show you in a moment exactly where I put it. And then I asked it to analyze the donors. And this is what it gave me. So the date range, they're mostly recurring donations. Isn't that interesting? The funds were primarily unrestricted. And they ranged from $4 to $9,157. Oh, it didn't give me the total amount donated. Well, we'll see that in a moment. And then it tells you what you can do to analyze the data a little more thoroughly. Oh, here we go. Sorry. Summary of donations. Number of donations, average donation amount. Okay, that's interesting. It said varying from small amounts to large amounts. I guess it's meaning the total. Whoops. Oh, okay, I did change that. Great. So the top 5 donors, John Smith, Kirsten Stevens, and spelled her own name, Valentina the cat, Milan, and Maui. Okay, so these are the top 5 donors. And then we have the donation types. So recurring donation, regular donation, who's on a schedule, and then soft credit is a solicitor. If there was a solicitor involved, they would get a soft credit for the donations. But that's all from a CSV. And that, by the way, was just me putting in very generally, please analyze. I didn't even ask for anything specific. Now let's go to what that would look like in ChatGPT. By the way, are you all able to do a little show of hands just so I know who is actively using ChatGPT? Because I want to be sure that I'm at the speed that most of the audience is, because in future sessions I can tone it down. We can do a little more. Okay, so Hayes using it, that's great. Andrea, Nicolette, great. Okay. Patricia, wonderful. Is there anyone who is not yet, How Foundation, thank you. Is there anyone who is not using it and would love to have a little bit of a session? Okay, Shah, Danielle, anybody else? Okay, what we might do, I'm going to think of, I think it should be ongoing also because ChatGPT changes all the time. Jen, okay, great. All right, thank you for letting me know, because I do want to make sure that we don't get ahead of ourselves, right? That the people who haven't used it have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about it. Now we do have those recordings on the Canico site, but let me jump in here and share my screen, and I'm going to show you. Let's see. I'm going to show you. All right, so I've had a few challenges today with ChatGPT, and I think it's because they're making some internal changes, but let's go into, where is this? All right, ChatGPT. Okay. All right, so here is an annual development plan table. So what I did was you can see, please prepare an annual development plan for me using fictitious information about events and campaigns that my nonprofit is going to be doing this year. Please provide it in a table, not just written. I did that because ChatGPT likes to tell you how to do things, but doesn't actually always do it for you. So here is my annual development campaign. Now you could double click on control on a Mac. I don't know what it would be on a PC. And you could dictate your instructions, which makes it even easier. And that's what I do. I dictate my instructions into ChatGPT. And then I go back and refine, and I ask it for more, and I ask it for more, and I ask it for more. So in this case, maybe what I would do is say, okay, can you expand on April and the Community Volunteer Day? I need to know, based on the size of my organization, how many staff I'm going to need. Based on what we raised last year with a 10% increase, what that number is going to look like. Our costs last year were X, so what is it going to cost us this year? So you can really, really push ChatGPT to keep giving you more and more information. And then it gives you the notes on the implementation. What about, okay, I know this is scary. It says Snake ID. I was testing this out because I could not believe that, it's the one I couldn't show you. I couldn't believe that I could upload an image and ask what kind of snake it was. My daughter and I saw this snake last week when we were out in the swamp, and I wanted to confirm that. She told me that it was she told me that it was a pygmy rattlesnake, but I really wanted to confirm it. So I uploaded an image and asked what it was, and there you go. You get an explanation. All right, so a little detour there. All right, so here's what I did. I went into the little paperclip. I uploaded my CSV or Excel spreadsheet. Please analyze this list of donations from last month. Oh, it was last month. Well, there you go. Not the year. And there it is. It gives me the information, and I don't want to go any further because I don't want to show proprietary donor information, but it's really straightforward. I upload cases for support, annual reports, letters, proposals, LOIs, instructions on how to write LOIs. So all of that you can be uploading. Let's look at enhancing our development planning. So you can even go in and ask for specifics. You could ask it for a breakdown of what a nonprofit board should be focusing on. You can, a lot of these things we talked about. You can, I mean, there are just a myriad of ways that you can be using ChatGPT for this. How about, let's see, fundraising strategy for the board. Okay, so let's say we want to put that together for the board. Maybe we don't have the luxury of having a development committee. We're going to put together a fundraising strategy for the board members. What about a gift table strategy guide? This is a good one. So let's say I have, this was my prompt. I'm working on some fundraising planning for an organization. We're hoping to raise $250,000 this year and have 3 major donors committed to giving $50,000 each. Can you please prepare a sample gift table of what the donations should look like for the entire donor base, broken down into larger and smaller amounts, and how many will be needed of each? So here it's going to give me what that structure looks like, how many I need, what that top of the pyramid is going to look like, the percentages, tips for execution, and then can you prepare a visual of the gift table for me? It's still, of course, it's always going to tell you how to do it. And there we have our gift table, which you can export. See, I had to ask it again, right? Please put it into a table for me. So you want to be sure that you've really leveraged this and pushed it as far as you need to. But isn't that helpful? I think it's tremendously helpful to get this laid out and say, okay, well, we know we have, and maybe it's grants. We know we have these grants coming in, but we still have to raise an extra $500,000. How are we going to break that out? Well, this is how we can do it. And of course, it's using very general fundraising data and statistics and history, where typically you have the larger group of donors at a lower level of giving, and they over time work their way up, and then you have, it's a pyramid, right? It goes up. You've got fewer at the top who are giving more funding. Let's see, did I have anything else? I have a lot of these. Major gifts advisor. I don't think I had anything in there today. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to ask? Or board governance? Nonprofit guide. I may have something in there. Let's see. Okay, so these are all showing up over here. There are some great CRM options that you can use. Oh, you know what I wanted to talk about as well is MailChimp. So MailChimp has been doing a lot in terms of integrating AI. So I'm going to put a link in the chat. Oh, first of all, donor search integration with Kindful. If anyone uses Bloomerang or Kindful, there is a webinar that shows how you can use donor search, which donor search is an AI function. And I'm going to pop this in the chat really quickly. So that's a great webinar that you could watch. Let's see. And then there's also a great YouTube video on how to use AI to write emails in MailChimp, which I'm also going to put here. Am I? Oh, you know what? Sorry. To everyone. Okay. This is the MailChimp one. This is the one from before that looks like it just went to one person. Sorry about that. Copy. Okay, this is the Kindful one that implements donor search. Donor search is very powerful. And it can really do a good analysis of your, now you have to pay for it. It's not free, unfortunately. All right, and there are quite a number of different tools. So Salesforce, Nonprofit Cloud, Bloomerang, Donor Perfect. They can automate donor segmentation. They can track interactions, provide insight. For email automation, MailChimp and Constant Contact are personalizing email campaigns, especially if you're really good at segmenting your donors and your audience. For analytics tools, Google Analytics, Tableau. I've only used Google Analytics, but those are options. Social media strategy and content creation. You can just use ChatGPT for that. Creating donor appeals and strategies. Oh, I did have another one. I have another one I wanted to show you. Ah, here it is. Okay. So let me clear this out. Check. All right, so let's go into donor appeal letters. So what I did here was please create a series. So I uploaded a case for support. And I said, please create a series of 3 year-end appeals to donors based on the information in the document. So here are my appeal letters. And then if I don't like the fact that they each target a different area, I can go back to ChatGPT and ask it to focus on all of the programs in each of the letters, not just one letter for one program, one letter for one program, but in each letter, talk about the 3 or 4 or 5 programs that we focus on. So that's what I asked for here. And so then it created the ones that our goal is to raise X amount to support and expand our cornerstone campaign programs, including, and then it lists what those programs are. And I have 3 of them, and they're actually pretty good. And I did ask it to be fairly, I think I asked for semi-formal. I would recommend semi-formal or casual for these communications. So then I said, well, what about a social media campaign strategy for the last 31 days of the year to support these appeal letters and include the actual posts and their content? Because I don't want it to just tell me what to do as a strategy, but I want the content. So there's my calendar for the last 31 days of the year. So all of December, and it's even suggesting where to post. You can ask it for hashtags. You can ask it for the emojis. You can really do a deep dive on these. And then it'll give you a little more information. So I hope that's helpful as well, just to know that that's available to you. Let me just see if I have any other links here that I wanted to share with you. In the meantime, though, who has questions for me? Oh, I do have another one for you. So MailChimp also does a send time optimization, predicting the optimal time to send your emails. And then Vidyard. So Vidyard is creating personalized video messages for donors. So it addresses them by name and it references their past contributions, which can be, okay, it can be creepy sometimes, but I think the personalization is pretty neat. And if you have donors that are into, they're into, you know, maybe technology, or you don't think that they would be scared off by something like this, then that's an option as well. So let me copy the link to this. I think it's a short clip on Vidyard's video options here for personalization and using AI. Okay. And then, you know, I had some case studies, but we all know, I mean, organizations like Charity Water and American Red Cross and Donors Choose, they're all using AI to help them with their predictive analytics and to enhance performance and fundraising, frankly. Let's see if there's anything else. I have a lot of tips in here that I was tracking, but I think those are the main ones. So who has questions that we can tackle? Questions? No one has questions?
I have a question. Can I
Yes.
ask you, how do you protect privacy and make sure that this information is not being used, by Chat GPT or, OpenAI in that way? And how do
Great
you
question.
assure, your staff, your board and your donors?
Great question. I will answer to the best of my ability. Daniel could not be with us tonight. Andrea, I see that you're in the audience, so I'd love for you to jump in if you have feedback as well. But paying for an account allows you to keep the information to within your team so that it's not being publicly shared. And then also when you create your GPT let's say you have a GPT for grant writing, you have a GPT for board development. When you create the GPT, it will ask you if you'd like the link to be available to just you, to your team, or to anyone on ChatGPT. And I always say only to me, because I'd rather go back in and open it up to someone on my team than be wondering if I clicked enough, to maintain the privacy. Go ahead, Andrea.
If I may add, oh, my camera's not working. I just realized that. Sorry, guys. I would suggest that you don't actually upload the exact records. For example, don't put the people's names. Maybe create an identification number. So then they can't tell what the data is, what is it related. So you can have the zip codes, you can have the cities, the states, and then unique IDs. So one way to do it is just add an extra column to your current file and assign each person, like start from a 1 or a letter A and B, whatever it is. And that's the information you want to upload. You don't want to, for protection, you don't want to provide like people's home numbers or email addresses. So use
100%. 100%. Yes. De-identifying the information is the best way to go. I use a lot of fictitious material, except for that one example that I gave you, which it's very old information, but I shouldn't have done that. I probably should have de-identified it anyway. And here's the thing. They tell us that it's not being shared, but I don't know that for a fact. So, I think our responsibility ethically is probably to always be on the cautious side and to de-identify as much as possible. Now, things that are public information, things that can be found on GuideStar, it's up to you, right? If you want to de-identify, if you want to remove the name of the organization, that's fine too. So it's completely up to you, but there are ways that you can safeguard that. Great question, Patricia. What do you have to offer, Andrea? Is there anything else?
No, I thought that was very good. I would strongly encourage those who are afraid of using ChatGPT. There was a session, maybe it was 3 months ago, if I recall correctly, and it was like the basics of the ChatGPT 101, I would say. Very user-friendly, great guidance how to start, not to be afraid of it, just dive into it and think of it as if it was your personal assistant, the person right next to you, and just like, how would you create a conversation, and like they say, the more you talk to, if you have an iPhone, Siri, the better the relationship. By the way, full disclosure, Siri still doesn't like me. I don't care what language I speak to her in. And, I think it's a women thing that she's too competitive. Doesn't like me at all. But in any event, with ChatGPT, you're training it. And I strongly encourage those who are not familiar with it to go back to that webinar session and view it, because it's extremely insightful. The more you interact with it, the more it will learn about you, about your organization, and about those you're dealing with.
So on the page of canico.com/courses, you'll see monthly educational webinars. So it's board, fundraising, and then we go into AI and technology, and it should be the first one, Introduction to ChatGPT for Nonprofits. Yeah, good point. Thank you, Andrea. Okay. Other questions? This is your chance. We have 10 more minutes. I've allocated 10 more minutes for questions, but you don't have to stay on. You're welcome to hop off if you have something you need to take care of. In the meantime, the next session is going to be grants, grant research, proposals, and reporting, getting the most out of your efforts. And of course, we're going to be using some AI. So that's always going to play a role in what we do. And don't forget about those courses. And then also we have a number of videos on our YouTube channel as well. Yes, Andrea.
I just wanted to say, if there's anyone that has come across with any other resources that you feel that we should share with other community members, or anything that you've come across that we have not shared in these webinars, this is about empowering each other and learning from each other. And there's so much technology. And there is actually a website called There's an AI for That. It's a big, that could be a little bit overwhelming, but if there's anyone that has come across with any type of resource that you feel it's something we should explore, maybe we should have a session about, please share it.
By the way, I will say on the ChatGPT front, I have been checking it all day to see if the 4.0 was released, because that's intended to be free. So I logged in under a different browser, and I was not able to access the free version of 4.0. It still took me back to 3.5 or the 4. Now on the 4, it does show 4.0, but the 4 is what I pay for. So that hasn't come out yet, but it's fascinating. If you have not seen the, oh, I had that link too. If you haven't seen the release video, it's really intriguing, because they have ChatGPT on your phone, and it's analyzing someone's behavior. They're doing a math problem and asking ChatGPT to look at the math problem as they're solving it and give them feedback. There's voice, so ChatGPT is talking back. They're talking to ChatGPT. I mean, it's fascinating. So really intriguing. But for the time being, I think we're still stuck in paying the $20 for the 4.0 or using the free version 3.5.
I make one more comment, Kristen. I believe it's important to note that one should not rely 100% only on ChatGPT. The way to be successful is to use it as a tool, but it is not a human. And just like the human can benefit immensely from ChatGPT, it's a combination, and that has been proven. Even if, let's say, you were to write a blog and post it out there, and there are studies that have seen which one performs better on a blog or on a particular post. The ChatGPT did okay. The human version did okay. The combination, that synergy, did outstanding.
Exactly.
So it's always important to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We talked about that a little bit at the beginning, that it does not replace what you know about your donors, or even your interaction, or even your voice. And, you know, I've never felt comfortable plagiarizing. In a way, I sort of feel a little bit like it's plagiarizing. So I always have to put my own spin. But if I'm presenting, or if I'm doing a training, I'll get whatever I can out of ChatGPT, and then I'll make it my own. There is a great newsletter that comes out that I subscribe to. It's called the Rundown AI. It is fantastic. It's free, and they send you a newsletter every day, and it talks about all of the new developments in AI, and it's amazing. It's amazing. Even if it's just to sort of sit there and go, wow, I can't believe that all of this is being done. It's impressive. So that might be worth subscribing to. All right. Does anyone have any other questions? Next session, grants. Yay. I know a lot of people working on those grants right now. So, all right. Nothing else for now? No comments? No, all good.
Thank
You're
you so
welcome,
much.
Meg.
This was great.
Oh, you're so welcome, Patricia. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome,
it.
Tom. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Charles. Thanks, Nicola.